So I'm excited because the new internet service has been helping me get caught up with the backlog of session recordings. So, here's the session on the MMC and how to build your own GUI old school with MMCs. That was back in, 25 March. And then since then, the sessions have focused on assignments and solutions. So those recordings are in the assignment and solution folder. But if you scan down here, it rolls all the way down through WDS and SCCM, some specifics about SysPrep. This all tracks with the study guide. Upgrade caveats and media preps. This is the link that you'll find on the 2.2 assignment or 2.3 assignment on how to build either a recovery or an install media. So there's a separate link for that in there, but WAC setup and network share configuration. So if you wanted to find the session that had the setup of the share, this is part of what you can do to work the sharing of resources. If you're getting stuck sharing your host directory, and we'll be talking about that and reviewing that one-on-one in just a minute, an alternative is to set up the share on the server and allow the host to post things or write things to that share. And that's one workaround to solve the problem. Here's the session on workgroup versus domain security account management, standalone versus enterprise SAMs, and the introduction to WAC, right? And here's RSAT. Way back in February when we were talking about remote server administration tool and how many PowerShell commands and firewall rules and how convoluted we had to go through to get that set up compared to WAC. I did want to show you in the session here, we wanted this to be done today if possible, but I'm willing to bump that back until noon tomorrow. The install and or media recovery media creation. You should have had that done already, but if you haven't, you have until noon tomorrow. The 2.4 feature install using PowerShell, that's something we'll walk through right now. Anyway, here's the extra link, so you can click right into that link to go through the installer recovery media creation. And it tells you what to do to submit. Inside your resources folder, you have these, so you have the assignment tasks and solution tasks. One thing I included with the 2.2 solution were the slipstream commands. So you can basically download this or copy and paste it into a temp file, put it on your temp directory on the host, and then drag it across or copy it across to the host machine. That way you can just copy and paste. So that's part 1 and part 2. And that's inside 2.2. And then inside, I wanted to show you this next one. I took down the assignment for SysPrep and Ubi. When I started working with that, I thought, oh, that's gonna, people are gonna be scratching their heads on that one. By the way, does anyone need more time on the slipstream stuff? Should I change this right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll change it to tomorrow noon, all right?
Yeah, that's good.
And then after our class today, I'm putting the assessment online. So you got to get on the assessment as quickly as possible. Before our next class on Tuesday, I want you to take both retakes for assessment, the assessment in module 1 and the assessment in module 2. And I want you to take a cumulative exam for class next Tuesday. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I might just post a window a little before and a little after the class time, but you have 90 minutes to get it done, right? Okay, so I'll change the header to, I don't want you to think it's to Friday noon. It's 9. It's Friday. There we go. 12 noon, 12 noon, 12 noon. All right, this one isn't nearly as involved, but basically, I think I demonstrated this in class. I just wanted to be sure that you had a chance to experience this. So I'm going to open up the reference for this. Essentially, there's some can everyone see this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do after you log in is we're going to go to the command prompt, right? And we're going to engage PowerShell. And then we're going to enter the command get Windows feature -name and then tel with an asterisk. And that'll show telnet client, and it'll show that it's unchecked. So what we're doing is getting the Windows feature specifically called telnet client. And so if I try to telnet right now, I shouldn't be able to telnet. Telnet's an old way to connect to a system. It's character based. You log in and enter a password. It's like old Linux systems, old Unix systems. In any case, after you issue the get Windows feature, it's going to load this thing, and then you add the Windows feature, telnet client. And after you're finished adding the feature, you'll see that it'll say true. And then when you repeat the command get Windows feature, you'll see there's an X. It's marked that it's enabled, right? And the status is installed, where before the status was that it was available but not installed, right? So that means you could load it. And some editions of Windows don't allow you to load certain features, like they'll say unavailable, right? Because you have to get the other edition. You have to get a higher version, a higher edition of the software. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Like if you want to encrypt virtual machines, you have to get data center. Can't do it with standard. After you do this, we want to remove it. I want you to understand how to remove the feature. It's a very simple command. So instead of add Windows feature, it's remove Windows feature. Very straightforward, right? You're going to go ahead and execute that. And then when you finish, if you repeat the command to get Windows feature, it'll show that unchecked and it'll show available again. See? Get Windows feature after I've removed it. It says, okay, success. I removed it. So when I get the feature, it shows that it's disabled, but it's still available. So if you can and you'd like to, you can walk through this with me right now. What do you have to do for your last, what do you have to turn in for credit? This last screen, the same as this last screen. You want to enter this screen as a screenshot. So you're going to capture in the view a screenshot, and you want it to show that it was added, that you got the status again, then it was removed, then you got the status again, then it was available but disabled again. Okay, you want all that on your screen, and that shows that. Well, the other thing too is that it's showing my login here. If I don't know how to say this nicely. But I provide the references so that people can see what's on their screen. You know that your prompt is supposed to be different because you're not using the same account name. Yes? Everybody knows this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I get your submission, if I see users spare, you and I are going to have a word of prayer about, okay, is this really on your system, right? Lately, I don't know what it is. People have been getting desperate. They're like doing some creative graphic stuff and cropping the image, and then turning it in. And then I get them, people understand that I'm a cybersecurity instructor, right? So I look at the metadata of that graphics file and it shows who was the original creator, Ken Top. Gets pretty sticky. Anyway, I wanted to walk through this. I wanted something quick and easy. I wanted you to enjoy some success. I know that what we're doing for the MSU slipstream is almost bad enough to be a solution in its own right. You have to break it down into two parts. It's a two-step process where you have to create the temporary image, the offline image. You have to mount the offline image after you mount the ISO. There's a lot of extra steps in part one and part two. I know this is tedious, but I do want you to know that Slipstream is worth knowing about because it's so efficient. In a large organization, you will be king tut and going home early because 200 machines you loaded from scratch all had the updates embedded already, and that's the kind of power that we have with this feature. So anyway, let's cut over to our screen and then let me reference these commands, right? Can everybody still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I know Robert got in there. Thank you for joining us, Robert.
Okay.
Okay, so I mentioned that I'm going to post the assessment after the class is done today, and that after I do this quick demo, we're going to be helping folks with whatever they may like assistance for. But then I'm going to post the assessment over the rest of the day today. So our first step is to go to the DOS prompt. I don't have to actually enter a menu item, but I have to get into PowerShell. And once I'm in PowerShell, I start with the word get. Get Windows feature. You have to include the switch name, and then I use TEL with an exclamation point. It's collecting data. On what I have installed. I don't remember it taking quite so long. So is anyone else having any issues with their systems while I'm waiting? There we go. So what's the command to enable this feature? What do I do next? Add Windows feature, telnet client, right? So I guess the important thing I'm trying to share with you is I used a short set of letters. Oftentimes you know the name of the feature, but you don't know the whole name, the formal name. So if you have just 2 or 3 characters with an asterisk, then it'll tell you the formal name in the name column, and that's what you use in the command next. That's an important tip, okay? So I'm going to add Windows feature, and then name, and then telnet client. And are there quotes there? No, there's no quotes there. That's pretty straightforward. It's going to take a minute. The next time I run get Windows feature, that stuff should be in memory. It shouldn't take quite as long. What I find weird about this series of commands is that the status bar, this is the first time I've seen the status bar pop into view above instead of below. You usually see the status bar with different characters down below the command, so it's kind of unusual. While that's running, I'd like to find out what happens if I enter the command get Windows feature without the name switch and just see what comes up on the screen. Okay, we have add Windows feature, then we have success equals true, no restart is required. It was successful, and now we have it. So if I hit my up arrow key and simply repeat get Windows feature, now you'll see it's enabled and the install state is that it's installed. But I want to be able to remove the feature as well. So what do I do to remove it? I just use remove Windows feature telnet client, right? It's very straightforward. And you're probably thinking, yeah, why didn't we do this from the beginning? Well, there's something to be gained from experience where you find out graphical user tools and graphical environments, there is quite a bit of overhead and headache getting them set up. The real benefit comes after they're set up. But if you need something quick and efficient, Microsoft is hoping that by structuring their management environment like this, more and more people will become familiar with the plain, straightforward commands and not worry so much about a GUI, right? There used to be a book called Real Men Eat Quiche for Breakfast. And then there was a whole series of jokes about what real men would eat, right? Like real men eat such and such for lunch, right? Well, real techs know this. And that's something that I called out intentionally at the top of your study guide, at the beginning of your study guide. It's always nice to have a GUI, you know, that's the easy button. But if it's much more efficient to learn a couple of quick commands, take some time to get to know each of those commands. If you have a listing of the features that you can add or remove, then it's just a question of repeating these same commands. So then the trick is just get a listing of the Windows features, right? Then you can take your pick and turn them on or turn them off. Any questions? Okay. So we've removed the Windows feature, and all I had to do was tap the keyboard. So it says true, restart. We removed it. I want you to notice how that result looks exactly like this result. Success true doesn't mean that it's turned on. Success means the command to either engage or add, add or remove the feature was successful, right? All right, so once again, you're going to take a screenshot of this, your screenshot, and that's what you're going to submit for 2.4. Any questions before we're finished?
No question.
Okay. I was going to ask if anyone wanted to share a screen. I did hear that a student or two was having difficulty setting up the share, and I wanted to be able to walk through that with people. Usually it's one character in the command that makes a difference or not. I'm too curious. I'm going to go back in here and see what shows when I do get Windows feature, but I'm not going to put anything down for name. Oh yeah. That's nice, isn't it? Okay. So that's the formal name. This is the name column. But you can basically see which ones are installed and which ones aren't. So you can repeat the same commands, only use this column here. Don't type in the feature by name here. Use the name that they provide here because they don't have any spaces. The AD- certificate, and so on. If I look down, at some point I should see Telnet in the list. If I remove that, so there's remote server administration tools. Huh. Thought we would have. Did we leave it enabled or disabled? I'll just repeat the command. I want to see if we removed it. That's why it's not showing there. And there it is, Telnet client. So if I try to use Telnet to go to another machine, I can't. Right. All right. That's all we planned on covering here. But SysPrep. Did anyone care to see the demo for SysPrep at this point?
Yep.
All right. In your textbook, the author actually covers SysPrep details, and it's pretty straightforward. I think in your study guide, there's also a reference to the command in there, isn't there? Oops. So here's the thing I want to tell you about SysPrep. when we run sysprep, we're taking everything that we set up in the whole system and we're cloning it basically. But we're removing any of the user information, any of the user profiles, any of the specific stuff. Once you, there's a catch to this. Once you run sysprep, the last thing it's going to do, if the command is properly entered, it's going to power down your screen. So it's going to run, sysprep will run, and then when it's finished, it will halt the system and it'll power the system off. You're supposed to know that at that point, you take the storage device where that whole system image lives. This is really important that you understand. You run sysprep because you intend to duplicate. So if I go to a lot of trouble to fix this machine and I want 50 copies of this running just because I need that many, right? Then I'm going to go ahead and run sysprep, and then I'm going to pull this virtual hard disk and I'm going to connect it to another machine. And using DISM or other MDT or ADK tools, I'm going to capture the whole system image off of this disk. And then it's available for duplication using Windows Deployment Server. It's not going to be a single disk you could pop into a removable tray. It's not going to be the size of a DVD. It's going to take up the entire size of the whole system. So these things can get to be 100 gigs large. That's a lot. But you're going to put that on a WDS server, and it's either going to push that out across the network, or it can create a series of smaller data files that you insert and load into a system. So it starts a pre-executable environment, and then it'll prompt you to swap out disks, swap out disks, swap out disks, because that image is so large. The thing that I want you to understand is that as soon as you turn this thing back on, if you run sysprep and then you turn it back on, what's going to happen is that you're going to undo all of the extra stuff that sysprep went through to generalize that system. It's going to prompt you, hey, this is the first time you've installed this operating system. Who are we working with? Give us a username. You know, what kind of language do you want to use? What keyboards? You know, what standard time zone are you? It's going to walk through the new system out-of-box experience, the UBI. Once you've turned it on and you've walked through the UBI, you now have a new system that's not suitable for duplication, because you've just told it who's logging in. You've just did a sign-on. It's created a name for that system. When the UBI runs, when you finish that process, there is a randomized name for the system. Now, in our case, we know what the name of our system is because we changed it. But if we go here and look at our menu, I chose to name my computer STD SRV1. When I do UBI, it's going to have some other randomly created name. But the point is I can't use that as an image, because when all those systems come up, that random name is going to be repeated over and over and over again, including all of the hardware and MAC addresses and network addresses. All of that's going to come up on the network. You'll have duplicate names and addresses on a network, and it'll crash. Very bad. Anyway, so I just thought that's why we have some things in red, okay? The important thing about duplicating virtual machines or actual physical machines is that you have to be careful when you bring them up again. And it really can be bad. So you have some people that are all excited about getting a whole new operating system. Oh, it's going to be nice to have a new system to work with. And you start the process, and then screens start dropping all around the organization, and the phone starts ringing off the hook, and everybody starts going bonkers. Why can't I do anything? It's because you have like little robots with all the same name running around on your system, on your network. And they're all trying to get the same traffic, and they're all saying the same thing. And it's like a big echo chamber. It just brings everything down around its ears. It's funny, but it's not funny. So does everybody understand the one important thing about SysPrep? Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Here's the command we want. And in case we don't have SysPrep on our system, we may need to load a tool called the ADK. So what I'm going to do is check first to make sure I have System32, SysPrep exe. Okay? So I'm going to go to the command line. And I'm going to exit out of PowerShell. And I'll type this in. Windows System32. And now I'm going to pull a directory for anything that has SysPrep in it. And there is a directory for SysPrep. It's right here. So I'm going to go into that directory. I'm going to see if I have the SysPrep command. And I don't. Sysprep.exe, let me look in here again. Yeah, I do. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Now, I'm already in this directory, so my command can be just this. Sysprep.exe generalize ubi shutdown. So here we go. And it's /generalize space ubi space shutdown. This is a very dangerous command, because if you go to a lot of trouble to set up a system and then you don't understand what comes next, if you don't have the tools to take advantage of it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I got to start all over again and set up accounts. Are we still recording? We are still recording. Okay. Can everybody see what's happening?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's going to appear to go on, which, by the way, leads me to another topic. When you first copy your ISO onto the temp folder on your C drive by following the commands for the sharing between systems, it's going to take a long time. It's a 4.5 gigabyte file, and it's coming across a network connection that flows in bits. And even if it's a 1 gig network connection, that's gigabits, you have to divide by 8, that's 120, it's like 125 megabytes per second. That takes a while. So you may think the command didn't work. That's a common issue. I'm going to let that run in the background. Would anyone else care to share their screen so we can look at and resolve any issues that folks are working on? Everybody see what happened? See how it says server? Oh, snap. It just cut off my server. Yep. So what do you think is going to happen when I bring up my system again? Is it going to be server standard 1?
Nope.
It's not. Is it going to have a statically assigned IP address? Oh, I don't know. It might. It'll be interesting. Am I going to be able to log in with my spare login? If what I told you is true,
Might be sick.
yeah, what I need to do now is go into my other tools, take that hard disk and extract the whole system image out of it, all 32 gigs large. In the interest of time and sanity, we're not going to do that today, but I want you to see how that works, and then I park it on a WDS server, a Windows deployment server, and all I have to at that point in the BIOS is turn on something called PXE and enable boot from my network. Now, the weird part is there's a way to do this in VirtualBox as well. What am I saying? You can boot from, you can start a server without having the whole system image. You can connect the image source as a storage device, like a thumb drive, a VHD, right? But more importantly, if you have Windows deployment server, everybody sees network here, yes? Does everybody see network?
Yeah.
If I check this box and I moved it all the way to the top, or more importantly, I unchecked these others, then what would happen is in an environment where you start up the system, if you have a Windows deployment server that's running, that's providing that PXE, pre-executable environment, the network's going to say, hey, who's out there? Oh, you have Windows deployment server. It's going to get a DHCP assigned address, and Windows deployment server is going to fire up a Windows install screen, an UBI screen, just like the one you're about to see. And then it walks through the process of, you know, a user saying, hey, yeah, Mr. Jones is going to use this system, and we're in the Virgin Islands time zone, and we're using an English keyboard. And you click through that UBI, and by the time you're done, you have a whole new image. But it's unique. It's different than the original. It doesn't cause a conflict. It doesn't crash anything. But it's 100% identical as far as all the system applications, the configurations, all the updates, the blood, sweat, and tears, everything you had to do. So what am I saying? You don't have to slipstream a system. You don't have to slipstream and install media, the source media. If you want to embed all of the updates into systems automatically, you can capture a whole system image that has been updated, just like my server. And when I connect it to Windows Admin Center in just a minute, you're going to see, oh, all the updates are already loaded. So either way, whether you slipstream the updates or you run sysprep, you don't have to run any updates. It doesn't take you 3 days to get a new machine. It takes you 20 minutes. Let me say that again. When somebody's machine burns up or blows up or gets infected, it takes you 20 minutes if you have one of these setups to recover. it won't be long before everybody on the island and then everybody in the territory knows, hey, if you have a bad problem, call this person, because they'll have you up and running in 20 minutes. Okay? All right, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. And I'm going to go back into the settings because I want to see if, okay, I've got the optical and the hard disk. I'm going to leave this the way it is, but I'm going to start it up. And when I start it up, something weird is going to happen. Hopefully it won't blow up. Hopefully. It's the first time I'm demonstrating this with VirtualBox live in front of a class, so your mileage may vary. If it goes well, I give God in heaven all the glory, truly, because there is a God in heaven, just as surely as there is a devil in hell. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to get weird on you with the religion. But I do hope that whatever faith you practice, it's a good thing for you. I'll just offer that while we're waiting. If you want to know a secret of industry professionals, there are occasions when you're rendering support to users. And our course is really about how to deploy and automate support so that you're smooth, fast, and professional when it comes to helping people get where they need to go. And I have demonstrated for part of our classes what it's like when you don't have everything together and you don't have a little script prepared. And this, it takes a long time to work through screens, to explain things. It gets to be tedious. You're going to find in this line of work that there's a lot of pattern issues that come up. And as you're working with users, it pays big dividends to sit down and think, okay, got a couple of minutes for this thing to run. What can I talk to this person about while the time, to pass the time, right? You always have a choice to say, hey, if you have something else to do, you can take a break and check out. Let's get on screen again in 10 to 15 minutes. But most often people simply don't know about the better features or the better practices in an operating system. They simply don't know that it's a lot less trouble to click, yes, accept this update right now. When it pops up down here in the corner, they don't know that. They don't know there's a way to accelerate the delivery so that it happens 100 times faster. And oftentimes all you would need to do is say, wouldn't it be nice if we could just like hit the fast button and it would go 100 times quicker and people would reboot while it's over their lunch break and everybody would be bulletproof. Sometimes I think people almost like it when stuff breaks because then they can't get their work done. Oh, now that wasn't supposed to happen. According to SysPrep, it's not supposed to be prompting for spare. That's not supposed to be in there when the generalized switch is used. It's supposed to be giving me this new screen to ask how to, oh, welcome to Windows Server 2019. Kind of like the new screen when you turn it on. So one of the things that we've learned here is that SysPrep may have some extra requirements to work properly in a Server 2019 environment. I know that if you do this on a Windows 10 machine, you've lost your stuff. And then everything's gone and all the data from the users are stripped out. But let's check under the hood just to see if everything else is intact and things were not properly generalized. I still have my spare user profile. What about the temp folder? I still have all the extra files in the temp folder. Oh yeah. So if I installed applications, if I have extra drivers, if I have extra updates, if I have this, I can try to run this just by copying this and running it from the command line. I don't need to slipstream it in an ISO. But you could pre-package a bunch of updates that you just manually install. That's one other thing we wanted to make sure. I thought I had demonstrated this before, yes? It's going to give us an error because this is already installed. All right. So what was supposed to happen didn't happen in this case. There could be something about the free version of Server 2019 that we get from Azure Education that doesn't work like the production environment. But if you run that same command on your laptop at home, when you start up that system the next time, don't be shocked if it looks like it's brand new right out of the box. All right, so other misfires withstanding, does anyone have any screens they'd like to share before we close today?
No.
Would anyone like to walk through some steps or troubleshooting with some of the assignments or the solution? Hey, Robert, I heard you're good. I want to wish everyone good luck on the next assessment. Be sure to take the time, to read through the study guide if you haven't already. Let me know if you still can't find what you need in the resources folder. I tried to get everything out there. There may be another video or two yet, but you should have everything you need. Most everything is due by 12 noon tomorrow. I'll post the assessment in just a little while. And you'll have until 11:59 p.m. Saturday to finish the first attempt of the assessment. You're going to do retakes early from that point next week, so we can get our first exam done. So if you have any problems getting the rest of these things done, just know that there's a lot of the assessment items are going to be pulling from these activities. And some of that material may not be in the study guide or the textbook, right? We had a question?
Yeah, so the midterm is going to be next week?
Your first cumulative exam is early next week, yes.
Okay.
You're going to take it in class
Okay,
at 2 p.m. on Tuesday.
got it.
And if for some reason you can't make class, you'll have until, I don't know, 11:59 p.m. to finish it.
Okay.
And then we'll go on from there. So we'll have more hands-on in the last two modules. So when it comes to the support and troubleshooting and the finer points, there'll be a lot of hands-on.
Wait, so when you say cumulative, what do you like everything we've done so far, or?
That's a great question. So we have an assessment from module 1 and the assignments and solution in module 1, the assessment and assignments and solution in module 2, all of the concepts, all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you've engaged to complete the assignments, all of that, that's going to be tested in the exam.
All right.
Yeah. The exam will be 90 minutes. You want to take the retake after you reconcile. So if you haven't reconciled yet, I've noticed some students haven't reconciled. If you go in here and you've taken the assessment, but you haven't reconciled, you want to reconcile.
Okay.
Okay. All right then. Unless there are other questions, I was going to clear the session and
Yeah, one question.
yes.
Did you go over 2.2, because I wasn't here to see all of that.
Okay. That's a great question. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I explained what you were going to do for 2.2. And I did walk through some of that, but then I said, well, I'm going to have a formal video. So in here, in the assignment tasks for this, this is like 11 minutes long, and then the next one is like 18 minutes long. So this is the first part of 2.2. And it explains how to set up the sharing resource, how to set the stage, right? And then,
Okay.
and then at the very end of this recording, you're ready to actually use the Slipstream commands. So there's some prep that you have to do to get ready to do Slipstream, and that's part one. And then part two follows. I can walk through it right now if you want.
Yes, please.
Okay. Do you want to do it on your system?
I'm on my Mac. I'm not on my desktop.
Okay. Alrighty then. So in my temp folder, I'm going to pre-position a copy.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. My temp folder isn't working. I don't know why.
So here's what I did. So I'll undo this and then you can see me do it. All right, so I open up my host. I click on temp, I go to properties and sharing, go to advanced sharing. I share this folder and I put a $ after it just to hide it. Because if you share stuff and then somebody gets on your network using Windows File Explorer, most people go into files and directories with this, but you can click on network, and if there are other connected systems on your Wi-Fi or on your local network, your cable network, basically you can start looking at stuff, and if something's shared, it'll pop out. So I want to share that with a $. I didn't change any permissions. The default permissions should be everyone can read. And that's all I want to do. I want to put stuff in the temp folder that the server can read or copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So once I have that, I go to my server. Oh yeah. And what I'm going to do on my server from the command prompt, normally when I get to the command prompt, it's going to look like this. And what I want to do is connect to that host share on the temp folder, the one I just set up right here, right? So I just shared this, and from here I'm going to use the command netuse z. I'm just using z because I got to pick a drive letter, and you know there might be other drive letters that are used when you're working with images. A lot of times they'll take up a drive letter. So I like taking Z and working backwards. I'm going to use the UNC convention to tell it where to find the Z drive. It's on ThinkPad 1. And it's my temp folder with a $. And if I log... Yeah.
So ThinkPad 1 would be the name of your computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to put that in there after 2 backslashes, not forward slashes, backslashes. I'm going to put a / persistent and then no. Because if I log out, I don't want that network drive map to stay in place. If somebody else logs onto my machine, I don't want them in that Kool-Aid, right? So I'm going to hit this. It's asking me to enter a name for ThinkPad. And one of the first things that happens with the misfire, this is quite common, and I even did this. I start entering the login and password for what? My server, my virtual machine. But that's not the username it's asking for. It's asking for a username for ThinkPad. So I have to pick my account name from my host, which is owner, right? And I have to put in my password. If I do that correctly, the command completes successfully, and then what I can do is go to the Z drive by entering the command for the drive letter, Z:. Now I have a Z prompt. And if I look at the directory, this is what's inside my Z drive on my server. It shows my ISO, my original install media image, the ISO image. It also shows the other directory, a test directory, the VHD directory, and the VM directory. And then here's the MSU file, right? And basically, I want to bring over stuff from this directory into my system, my server. So when I go back on my C drive, I want to go to a temp directory. You should have a temp directory created on your server already. Do you have a temp directory on your server?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at it, I've already put the stuff in here. You get the point, right?
Yeah.
So I can use a simple command to copy from Z. So I could go, I could say copy everything. Well, I'll say copy Z, everything, to C:\temp. And for good measure, I can do verify, right? I hit enter, I get everything that was in my temp folder. Now, if I have a lot of stuff in my temp folder, like extra directories and things like this, I can basically copy based on file extension. Like I can put in MSU or I can put in TXT, right?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. And so, you know, if I copy this over, well, all right, so let me show you something here. I'm going to delete this file. Okay. On my server temp folder. Right now I have 15 gigs free on my server, but I'm going to delete this thing, right? So you're going to see this increase to 20. So I'm going to delete my ISO file. I'm in the temp folder, so I'm in the temp folder right now, so it's going to use that command and it's going to see this file. It's going to delete it. And I'm wondering, is it stuck? Sometimes I have to go to the keyboard and insert a control break. Delete. Let's do a directory. Yeah, it's still there. So I gotta erase ISO. Wow, that was quick, wasn't it? Yeah, so my virtual machine gets stuck a little bit sometimes. So where am I going to get that? Well, I connected to my host. I connected to my host to this directory in here, and I have a copy of this sitting right there. So that was part of the reason for our activity, was just to get you in the habit of creating quick connections. I also created, by the way, a quick share on standard server that I can use to share things from server back the other way. what am I saying? If I connect to this and you look at the shares I have set up on standard server, I've also got the temp folder shared. So if I want to connect to it from here, I can map a network drive to standard server temp $, and I'm looking at what's in the temp folder on the server, right? I'm looking at what's in the temp folder on the server. In any case, I don't have what I need yet to be able to work with my slipstream, right? I have the commands, and I have the download, the update, but I don't have the ISO. So I'm going to go ahead and copy verify from Z anything that's an ISO to my C drive. Now, if I just put C like this, I'm already in temp, it's going to dump it in temp. If I do this, it's going to dump it in root. If I do this, it's going to hardwire it to temp. It's better to specify temp just so I don't end up putting it in root. So it starts, it lists that first file, but that's a 5 gigabit file, right? Or 5 gigabyte file multiplied by 8. 5 gigabytes is 40 gigabits. That's going to take a while, right? And sometimes people issue a command like this and they're like, oh, it's not working. Oh, I got to stop it. Oh, I better control alt delete. I better control break. No, it's a very large file. And even though the network connection between the server and the host is a 1 gig connection, it's still going to take a little bit of time. The important point is that after you copy, you want to make sure that these file sizes are the same, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure the whole file got across. That's another thing that happens, is that people do this and then they're in a hurry. Oh, and the class is over, so they got to close their laptop lid. They put things to sleep. That puts the virtual machine to sleep. It saved the state. It's halfway into copying it across, and then next time you open the lid on your laptop, it starts up again. Sometimes those disruptions can prevent a clean copy from coming all the way across. So it's always good to do a manual checksum, and by that I mean, okay, on my laptop and my temp drive, it's 4.92 gigs, but more specifically, if I look at the properties, it's 5292310.528 bytes. 310528. $310,528. You see that? That's what was on there before I deleted it. After the copy process finishes, and it's going to take longer because I wanted it to verify. I'm going to check to see what the numbers are there to see if they match. It's not the same as a hash, but it's pretty close.
And that's not a problem?
What? If
The-
the numbers match, it's not a problem.
Okay. Okay.
If the numbers don't match, then it's obviously a problem because the whole file didn't come across. If you wanted to be sure that what you got, the copy that you got, was 100% identical, you would generate a hash of the file here on the laptop. So I'd run a hash utility on this, I'd get a value for the hash, and then I'd get on my server and I would run a hash on the copy that I have. And if the hash doesn't match exactly, then it didn't come across cleanly. Or something hitched a ride. You see how long it's taking mine?
Yeah.
And is that what happened with yours?
No, I was using the Windows Admin Center. Man, I left it on at home to copy over, but I don't know if it's finished.
So when you did the Windows Admin Center, what you're saying is you got on this screen, and then you went to Files and File Sharing,
Yeah,
and you set up a transfer with this instead of worrying about doing what
I wanted to do it the way that you specified in the assignment, but it wasn't working for me.
okay.
So I did it this way. I went to upload.
Oh, you did. You went to upload.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I've never used this. You go to temp.
yeah. I uploaded the MSU file and the ISO file to temp, but the ISO file it wasn't moving. I don't know why. I don't know if it was still copying over or something, but I left it home to.
It was still copying over. Look, this thing, it shows in here.
Yeah,
This is the temp file. This is the temp folder on my standard server. That's
yeah,
that's the same as this screen right here.
yeah. When I typed in
Oh, oh, did you see what happened? I hit return, and then it's like it just sat there. One file copied, right?
yeah,
So
it
so you did it from here, upload, download from here.
yeah, but it's taking longer on this screen than it would on the server.
Well, that's okay. If it isn't finished when you get home, I would try the method I just walked through with you at this point. So now
Yeah.
if I do the directory now of my temp folder, I have my original source media image back again. And it's 5292310528, right? Same number that I have on the Z drive. If I go to the Z drive, it's 5292310528. I wish when you were working in character mode like this, you'd get a sense that it was on another system. But once you map a drive letter, it's gonna seem to be the same. It's gonna seem to be on the same system even when it's not. Right? We have all these other directories here.
Yeah.
Other test VHD, that's on my laptop. That's not on my server. My server doesn't have all that. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to review?
No, that should be it. I didn't look over the other two assignments, but I think 2.2 is the only one that should give me trouble.
Once you get past that point, the rest of it is all just copying and pasting. So in here, what you do, and this is a neat trick, right? So I open up Notepad, and because those sample commands were in my temp folder when I brought everything across, when I open this up, I'm just copying and pasting from this to finish, right? So after you've set up the share, the first thing you're going to do is from within PowerShell, you're going to use this command. So you have to mount that image, that digital image disk, as if it were a plastic disk you were putting in the DVD drive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you're creating a directory to hold the contents of that plastic disk you just inserted in the tray. And then you're copying everything from that plastic disk into this temporary image folder. And then you create an offline space, kind of like a workbench, for DISM to go to town. And it has to get inside that image and find a specific file called install.wim. This is actually where the installation code is living. That's a 4 gig file. That's the engine that makes it all go when you run installations. It's called the Windows install image.wim file. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
and we're doing index 1. You'll have a misfire. I explain why some updates don't work. There's 2 really important reasons why they don't work or might not work. You know, just you know, sometimes you have to update some other update before you try this one. And then other times it has to do with the licensing issue. The Azure Education license is a long time support channel. It's called an LTSC license. And only some of the updates are approved technically for that long time or long-term support license. Doesn't make sense when you run Windows Update, it says, oh, you have 57 updates that are available, and half of those are optional. You may or may not need, depending on the context, depending on which software is loaded on your system and so on. Anyway, good luck with it. I'm available if you need assistance.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, and good luck on the assessment and the retakes.
Professor Kentop, I had responded to IT, but I never got a response back.
Really?
So,
No, hold on. I'm going to call him right now.
okay.
I want you to stand by and I'm going to call him because basically they were supposed to be able to coordinate a time. And they didn't send you back a time?
No.
Okay.